We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we are joined by a very special guest. We have Mr. Jonathan Hochman. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Excellent. If you don't know, at DelrayWatch.com, he is the guy behind the scenes that's keeping everything moving very smoothly. The operations director, the director of operations, we love having him here, and he's done so many great things. So we have him on because not only does he do great things here, he also has a lot of interesting perspective from the watch industry as well. So we're going to have a little chat here together, really, talking about will Tudor become the next Omega? Will Omega become the next Rolex? And this is actually inspired by a conversation, a water cooler talk that we were having here at Delray Watch, DelrayWatch.com. By the way, what's in stock at DelrayWatch.com that people can check out?
Sure. So, well, it's not online yet, but we just got a 43 millimeter Red Sea Dweller.
Cool.
Did you mention other watches? I'm not sure. I can't remember what we have.
I know we have so many things. It's really hard to keep up with it. But guys, check it out. We have so many cool things. Rolex stainless steel sports models. Actually, what's on the wrist before we get into the topic? What do you wear today?
Sure. Black Bay 58 black.
Tudor Black Bay 58 black. Cool. How do you like it?
It's really good. I like the height. I like the size.
And where'd you get that?
Sure.
The Delray Watch?
but we didn't have it for sale. You know what I mean? We probably got that for sale. So.
Yeah, it's all fun. Are you gonna ask what I'm wearing today?
Well, I thought we just do different fit.
Yeah, today actually I am wearing. It's kind of a joke watch at this point, but it's a Bulgari service watch. LVMH was doing this. This was like the latest fad. I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and it's a Bulgari service watch that looks like a tiny version of the Bulgari Roma or something like that, now current watch model, which is a previous watch model. But interestingly enough, the battery has died. There's no way to open this. Hans has tried. He has to break the watch, and it's really no way to access it to replace the battery. So my Bulgari service watch needs a service watch. What do? I don't know. Gag watch. I kind of like to put around in the office with this. So will Tudor become the next Omega? Now, this is something we always talk about, and it's kind of a concept that gets kicked around. Omega's been moving up market. We'll talk about that. But is Tudor, in your opinion, trying to take Omega's position? Is Tudor going to be the next Omega?
No. I really think that, they have different targets of who they target. In other words, you see the range, and also what they do, right? So, for example, there's things that Tudor, being part of Rolex, doesn't seem interested in doing. There are no tourbillons, for example.
Okay.
Right? There are no really complicated watches. Split second, for example. The last time Rolex made a split second watch was 1944.
That's a good point.
So, they're not going to... they might compete in some things in terms of, yes, they both make dive watches, but that's pretty much it, I think.
Interesting. So, in terms of positioning, right? Because Tudor was, kind of historically the more affordable of the watches in terms, even compared to Omega and Rolex. But as they push up market, we see their prices go up. Do you think maybe they'll jump out and start developing a little bit more complicated watches, a little bit more nuanced watches for the collectors?
So from what I understand, when Tudor, quote-unquote, restarted, Rolex gave them some leeway. The former CEO of Rolex gave them some leeway. Rolex now has a new CEO and apparently took that leeway away.
Interesting.
So
you're pretty confident Tudor is what it is, but you believe in it yourself because you're wearing a Tudor.
Right, exactly.
Cool. So I guess you're saying you don't think it's going to become the next Omega, but who knows, right?
Yeah, you never know exactly, but, so we'll see.
Cool. So that takes us into next, Omega becoming the next Rolex. And that takes us into the next point, which we'll talk about, Omega pushing up market, trying to compete more head-to-head with Rolex. I've done previous videos where I've compared the Omega Seamaster 300M, the ceramic bezel current generation, compared to current generation Rolex dive watch Submariner, and the Omega actually beats the Rolex pretty much spec for spec, with the exception of the hardness of the stainless steel alloy that they're using. Everything else, they pretty much beat them. Much lower retail price. Do you think Omega is going to become, or already is, where Rolex used to be, let's say 10 years ago? So is Omega the next Rolex?
I mean, they probably are in terms of, again, what they compete with Rolex. Again, Rolex doesn't make tourbillons, Rolex doesn't make split seconds, Rolex doesn't make, more complicated watches. I think that basically the core watches, we'll use the Seamaster as an example. Yes, I think price-wise, they are 100% where Rolex used to be.
What about demand? What about market demand or kind of perception, luxury prestige, right? Luxury items.
Well, I mean, in terms of, so Omega does not, for the most part, unfortunately, but for the most part, most Omega models do not have the demand. Let's just say you use sports, right? So let's just narrow everything. Stainless steel, sport Omegas do not have the demand that Rolex has. Sure. Definitely. Okay, a Speedmaster does not have the demand that a Daytona has. It's also very different price points, right? They're very, very far away from each other. Obviously, the Seamaster Pro is a lot closer to the no-date sub. But there's just one thing, though. We have seen that new Seamasters are getting harder to get.
Oh, yeah. And there's actually people that have been leaving in the comments below, because I've talked about this in the past. He can be the one to tell you, because he's really handling it. How difficult is it to get some of the new wave dial ceramic bezel Seamaster 300s?
Weeks. Like over a month.
And what about on a bracelet?
Even longer wait times.
It's unbelievable. There have been some people that said they were lucky they walked into an AD. I think someone said they walked into a Tourneau or something like that. But we're experiencing still pretty long waits, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. So, in short, is Omega becoming Rolex?
No.
No?
Still no.
Okay, well, let's see. I personally do believe that they're making a really hard run for it, and at least in the circle of watch collectors that want a watch today, don't want to go on a waiting list, actually want to wear a watch, not just a luxury product, they are being attracted to Omega, and rightfully so. I've owned them. They're great watches, and everyone that works with us at Delray certainly, I think, would agree, and we can see it from collectors as well. But that takes us into the next question. I know you're very passionate about this one. Is Rolex the next Patek Philippe? And I'll let you explain.
Sure. So obviously we're not saying in terms of, direct competitor. Obviously, Patek Philippe's competitor is Audemars Piguet.
But the overall, right, the perception,
right, the perception, standing, right, exactly. I mean,
the purpose.
Some people think, I'm one of them, that basically Rolex is moving Tudor, or at least part of Tudor, to fill the gap where Rolex used to be. Again, price-wise, material-wise, quality-wise. And they are moving Rolex upmarket. So, for example, somebody that used to purchase, or is used to purchasing a, let's say, Patek dress watch, simple time-only color travel, or with complications, then wants an everyday sports watch, right? They can really take a beating. Unfortunately, unlike a Nautilus, unlike an Aquanaut, they will look towards Rolex. Is what I think Rolex is trying to position themselves as. And as you see that, as they increase their prices year after year, as they create the scarcity of the sports models, especially stainless steel sport models.
So you think Rolex is going to be the wearable sports alternative to the sports model Patek Philippe, the Aquanaut, the Nautilus? People are actually going to wear the Rolex sports models as an alternative because the Aquanaut and the Nautilus have become like collector's items. Is that it?
Well, no, I mean not exactly. Obviously, because there's a massive price difference. We're talking about even a retail. Forget about gray market, and obviously even a gray market. So if you see what gray market goes for, stainless steel Daytona now versus retail, it's high. But if you see what retail is for Nautilus versus what gray market is for Nautilus, it's even higher, right? In terms of multiplicity, is even much higher. No, what I'm saying is somebody will buy a more traditional looking Patek, and they will go ahead and then they will buy a Rolex as their quote unquote sport everyday watch. And if they actually, really are able to acquire an Aquanaut or Nautilus, they will, but they will not use those watches really to go into a swimming pool or to go into the ocean or any sort of activities, to go skiing, but they will use the Rolex.
That makes a lot of sense. But we're also seeing the opposite, right? We're seeing a lot of people that are buying the Rolex and they don't want to ever wear it. We were having this conversation today with the most basic entry level Rolex Oyster Perpetual, even that I have, the red grape, all of a sudden it's become desirable, selling for $8,250, a watch that was retail, I think $5,000. That was supposed to be the watch that anybody could walk into Rolex and buy and be the only thing that was in stock. Now it's collectors. It's like people don't even want to, myself included. It's just, it's just become a collector's thing at this point. And not that I recommend collecting Oyster Perpetuals, but I think you get the idea. It's like when you want a watch to beat up, do you want a watch that just seems to add $1,000 in value every week? I don't know. A lot of people are on the fence about that. So it's interesting perspective. But last, I want to touch on this because I'm seeing people that are not watch geeks, not watch collectors, not watch savants, people that are not like you and I and him that are out here on the internet in our free time talking and listening to watches. These are just guys that heard something from someone or they read something on the internet in like a GQ article. Is FP Journe the new Patek Philippe? There's people that don't know anything about watches, and that's fine. Love having people in the community. It's great. But FP Journe was always a brand that was for the geeks and those that really had to have something interesting and special and didn't care about necessarily the naming and the prestige that like Rolex or Patek would come with. Is Journe the new Patek Philippe?
Also no, but
I'm getting a lot of no's here.
Sorry.
I'm getting a lot of no's. I wonder if I was to put someone that was just a collector and not, an experienced person from the industry, I wonder if I would get the same reactions.
So a couple of things have helped Journe out. So I would say, for example, they put boutiques, right? They put boutiques, brand-owned boutiques in, like a better term, the right parts of the right city, the right parts of the right cities, in the right parts of the world.
Financial districts.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Madison Avenue in New York, and it's been open for a long time. They put, obviously there have been missteps here and there. They put a boutique in Boca. But so that also helped have public perception of the brand. There's a lot of things that are considered prerequisites for the watch world. I would say probably one of the most important one is a century plus of being in existence for the most part. Yes, I know Blancpain stopped and then restarted, again because of the quartz crisis, but Patek has 175 plus years of history. Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, the history helps. The Breguet history helps. There's just this long-term, Vacheron history that it helps. It just really helps. Journe at the moment doesn't have that, so that's one thing that there's a perception of it. Yeah. Also,
but you can't get a Journe though.
Yeah, but you can't get a lot of Pateks either. That's something you just can't get.
I know that, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to get to. Is it going to get to a point where people just say, if I have to sit around or wait or pay over premium, am I going to choose a Patek Philippe or am I going to choose the Journe? If both of them have this kind of like wait list idea surrounding it, which one are you going to go with? Let's say it's you. Are you going to go with the Journe or are you going to go with the Patek?
Really
comparable, not necessarily comparable models, but let's say comparable price points.
Sure. I mean, well, no, on the horological side, well, it depends really which way you're looking at it. So if you're looking at it from terms of horology, the Journes aren't as well finished as the Pateks, just in general.
Right.
Like even again,
there's going to be people that are going to want to take you out back for that comment.
It's nothing new. I'm not saying anything that nobody didn't know before. Now, at the same time, even Patek, for a simple time-only Calatrava, is it finished movement-wise? Forget about anything else. Movement-wise, is it as well finished as a Grandmaster Chime? I don't mean the limited edition 7 with like the hand-engraved cases. I mean just the movement of the Grandmaster Chime. No, there are discrepancies. Longate's really the one that has really the least expensive watch is as well finished as the most expensive watch for a large company like that. I don't mean,
So do you get the Journe or do you get the Patek? That's what everyone wants to know. Everyone out there is dying on the edge of their chair right now. Are you Journe or are you Patek? You have to decide right now. This will be forever ingrained and documented on the internet. I'll never take this video down until I take it down when I just toss in the hat on YouTube. But are you getting Journe? Or are you getting Patek?
Until I write a nice letter to Fergie Brain.
You have to decide.
No, it really would depend on the model, obviously. Sorry.
Should he get a Journe or a Patek? Leave it in the description. Actually, leave it in the comments below. It's been a while since I shot one of these. Leave it in the comments below. Journe or Patek? Which should he get? But guys, I want to know, what do you think? I'm sure that we both want to know. It's always different, depending on your perspectives, your history, your watch collecting history, what's in your collection, how you kind of view some of these things. And I've heard comments from a lot of you, especially when talking about the whole Omega Rolex Tudor thing and the way that Omega's positioning themselves. A lot of people have been adding Omega to their collection. And you can even look in some markets like Japan and parts of Asia where Omega's just not desirable to the same kind of levels that it is, at least we're seeing here in the US and in Europe. What do you think? Leave that in the comments below. Also, if you have any other questions for Mr. Jonathan Hochman, please leave those in the comments below. Love to have him on again to do another video. If he wants to be on, this may have been a horrible experience for him, and in which case he may never want to return. But nonetheless, I do leave the door open in case you'd like to.
Well, how else we can exit the building?
In the future, we'll see it. But guys, once again, check out DelrayWatch.com. Don't forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P. with Mr. Jonathan Hochman. Ciao.